Hello, everybody. Good to see you,
And the
Craig.
bar is quite low for lawyers in this space.
We're raising the bar. I passed the bar. I'm raising the bar. Hello, everybody. Here we go.
By the way, I got to ask the red jacket.
Yes.
You used to be, or maybe you still are, home, like DAT's got some weird paying you.
So I am a world-renowned, with tens of dozens maybe of subscribers to my podcast, and DAT sponsors the podcast. The red jacket predates DAT.
So this
I
is
love
not a
red
truck
corduroy.
stop message that you've abandoned ship?
No, I still am very loyal to the folks that want to collaborate with me, and I love this industry, and I'm very blessed to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
You know, we got the chance to talk to the three sort of participants in this load board exchange battle of titans and upstarts. I'm curious what you, from the outside, are thinking about all of that in terms of these marketplaces.
I think the marketplaces serve an incredibly valuable purpose. My still fundamental belief is we're going to see autonomous trucks in the next 5-10 years.
Do you believe that?
I absolutely do. I think if you look at the trajectory of innovation in our industry, from containerization in the 50s and 60s to deregulation in the 80s and 90s, the natural progression is automation. The entire thesis of today's conference and yesterday was automation, AI, different components. So whether it's autonomous trucks today, tomorrow, it's Outrider in the yards, this future is coming whether you want it to come or not.
But Matt, I talked to the FMCSA's general counsel. This was 3 years ago. And his commenting, because I asked him about what are you guys doing about hours of service as it relates to autonomous trucks? And he said to me something really interesting. He goes, Craig, there is no statute that actually says a driver must be in the truck. And he's like, that's the problem. We actually don't even know how to answer the question about whether an autonomous truck should be subject to hours of service. And it struck me that, and oftentimes technology businesses are well in advance of the law and the regulations catch up. But it struck me that this problem is not a technology one, but a regulatory one.
Absolutely.
And the other problem that you end up with when you talk autonomous trucks is I not only have to deal with the interstate highway system, but I have to deal with the state highway systems and the Sorry, it's been a long day. That's why I need some caffeine.
Absolutely.
Kaylee, bring it out.
Well, you bring in a really great point.
The municipalities I'm subject to that as well.
How many of you in the audience know the national out of service rate for commercial vehicles? Anyone know off the top of their head? 22%. Yes. 22% of all commercial vehicles are unsafe at any speed. If you walked outside today, looked at the trucks and trailers on our highways, and you looked at them, 1 in 5 would be unsafe at any speed. So we see this new push on driver qualification, non-domiciled CDLs, English language proficiency. We know that our industry is asking for something new. And to your point, it's not technology that's stopping adoption. It's FMCSA creating and promulgating rules on level 4 and level 5 automation. I suspect seeing Kodiak do a reverse SPAC and become a public company in the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months, you will see proposed rules on level 4 and level 5 automation. And when that happens, it'll be just as profound as deregulation. We do not know we're living in interesting times until after that time has passed. This is one of the most critical parts of our entire generation of supply chain people. And when the rules get proposed, you will be reporting it. We'll all be talking about it. You should all be commenting it, because that's how you participate in your democracy and how you participate in the rulemaking process.
But Matt, one counterpoint to that is we've had public companies that are autonomous companies. Too simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe more notorious than successful, but they had the chance to do that. The larger carriers, Waymo was certainly a larger entrant in that, but they've had the chance to change those rules. They haven't gotten them. Is it been a technology? The technology was so away from reality and commercial viability that they were not prepared to take those steps? Or
I think we're seeing is the trends and forces of history. You don't get to choose them. You just get to see how they work. Some companies will not be successful. Some companies will be successful. But we know right now that Aurora and Kodiak are moving freight without a driver. They have safety drivers intrastate, inside the state.
But so did Uber Freight or Otto. Like, they were doing it too.
And I think the leader of Uber Freight moved on to another autonomous trucking company. I'm telling you, this is the future of how you reduce the cost of transportation. The biggest costs are fuel, labor, assets, maintenance, insurance, and tires.
I think we all agree that the technology, the economics of eliminating the truck driver are incredibly lucrative. The question I have is thank you, man. I appreciate you.
There you go.
The question
I didn't
is,
get any.
you didn't get any.
That's
You got
all
to
right. That's okay.
You know, Donald Trump's got a button on his desk. Although he gets Diet Coke.
Yeah,
I have the
we
full
have
sugared
miscommunication
version
here.
here. So
Well, I think like we are in this really interesting time, and we'll talk about like the IEEPA tariffs that are coming up. I mean, we
Yeah.
are watching in our.
but I don't want to leave this autonomous thing too
Sure.
quick
Okay.
because I think it's an important question. Just because the economics make sense does not mean the regulatory environment will support it.
Mhm.
And how do you explain to a fleet executive that I'm going to have this autonomous truck and a state like California, which has done this, has outlawed autonomous heavy duty trucks? And how do we know that it isn't going to happen in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, so forth?
Now, every time the states have tried to ban autonomous trucks and force a safety
California
driver,
got away. California did do this. Didn't
they've killed the bill twice to force a human being inside of a truck. The Teamsters fought again. OIDA fought it, but ultimately, even if some states push back, if and when the federal government says we have supremacy on this domain and we're going to say these things and we're going to say here's how we solve the pre and post trip inspection, putting out placards if the truck breaks down, when you can solve that, then it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And it may not be 20% of the freight, but a portion will be. And the yards will be automated. The warehouses are automated. What we used to offshore, now we're automating further. So it's not going to look like a driverless truck everywhere, but it will be something where we see platooning or other opportunities. But this industry is fundamentally changing. In the next 10 to 15 years, will be unrecognizable, just like deregulation, just like containerization. Everyone says it's impossible until it happens, and then they say it's always been this way. You can't go back.
Question for you, because I actually want some clarity here. Can the federal government mandate to the states and municipalities that trucks, heavy duty trucks that are autonomous, have to transverse their roads?
I suspect on federal highways, the federal government has the supremacy to do just that.
Interstates are one thing.
Yes.
I'm talking, the problem to get to door transportation, I have to get on a state highway.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
the feds, as far as I know, maybe I'm wrong about this, the interstate is one thing, right? But if I leave the interstate highway system, I'm effectively on a state highway or a municipal road. It strikes me that that is the risk, is that now you have the problem. I had somebody who's a lobbyist explaining we were talking about AI and talking about and the whole social media world and stuff. And she had studied public policy and talked about how lobbyists work. And she says, it's not the federal level that is where a lot of the attention is, at the state. And she goes, what the trick is, if they want to kill a bill, they don't go directly at the bill. They pile a bunch of crap into the bill, knowing that the state senators will not vote for that because the crap, whatever it is,
Yeah, put a poison pill inside the
poison pill.
Yeah.
And that is the trick that a lot of lobbyists do. And it strikes me that when you get such visceral reactions from the Teamsters, visceral reactions from the public, that creates an environment where the states potentially will ban these trucks. And that, to me, feels like a pretty substantial risk as a fleet operator.
I think that trucking companies are conservative. Obviously, the ORs don't support the kind of innovation that would require this. But the moment you see the FMCSA promulgate rules, and they will promulgate rules on level 4 and level 5 at some point, we will see how the ATA responds, how TIA responds, how every U.S. Chamber of Commerce responds, and we will see which way the industry is moving. But there's no doubt in my mind, a portion of over-the-road trucking will be automated. Maybe it's from node to node along the federal highways and nothing beyond that. Maybe it's never at your door. Maybe it's not LTL, but a portion will be. And that will change how we look at the industry, because these trucks cannot be as dangerous as our current trucks. They can't be.
So do freight brokers in a world of autonomous trucks have a place?
Of course they do. They always will. They always will. Specialty, there's riches in the niches. But this industry never had freight brokers before deregulation. This legal change allowed them to explode. And we will see this industry continue to evolve as we push costs down and hopefully increase safety.
I mean, the fragmentation exists because of the driver. Let's just be frank. That is the reason the market has so many trucking companies, the truck driver themselves.
Absolutely.
Eliminate the truck driver, you eliminate the fragmentation, and therefore you eliminate a large portion of the arbitrage that brokers benefit from.
Absolutely.
That to me strikes me as a pretty significant development for a lot of the folks in the room.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, like I cannot emphasize enough for everyone that's here, you are in the changing of an era. Like this, you don't know it's happening until it's beyond you. And when it does change, when we start actually seeing rules, like you wouldn't see these certain signals like the folks like Kodiak doing a reverse spec. If you live here, if you live in Dallas, you see these trucks going to Houston every single day. You can't stop the trends and forces. You can comment, you can lobby, you can push, maybe you can force a safety driver, but this story has an ending and we see which direction that's going. I have no doubt in my mind the technology will be there. It's the regulations and the law that'll have to catch up.
I'm going to disagree with you, but I'm going to move on.
Okay, that's fair. I'm very disagreeable.
I don't think the SPAC thing has anything to do with the fact except the company needs money, needs capital, and we've seen a lot of companies SPAC. A lot of that technology went to zero. A lot of scammy companies SPAC, including Nikola. I think it proved nothing.
Absolutely.
And also, Too Simple gives me a lot of pause because it also did a public offering and became nothing but a bunch of internal politics, which you should do that story at some point.
Absolutely.
It's a great story. All right, I want to move on because neither of us will know this for 10 years.
Oh, 100%.
I want to talk about something much more relevant to today's regulatory environment. And I want to start with the truck drivers because the ELP, they like the English language proficiency. Gosh, it's what happens when you don't leave stage, by the way, to my schedulers. I need breaks. The ELP mandate as well as non-domiciled CDLs.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, so let's look at the English language proficiency. For anyone who's been in this industry, let me be very clear. It has been the law since the 1930s. This is not new. This is not a new phenomenon. To make sure that truck drivers can write and understand and communicate in English with law enforcement or otherwise. That has been the law for a very long time. What has changed is now it's an out-of-service issue, which means if you are stopped at a roadside inspection, you can't pass the English language proficiency, you are out of service. You have to send a recovery driver, you have to get something to come get that truck or get that trailer because that is now an out of service. Some of the states before ELP became a new mandate on the enforcement side were doing this on their own because let's talk about the FMCSA. It's $1 billion a year organization, 1,000 employees regulating 500,000 motor carriers, 25,000 freight brokers, 4,000 interstate bus companies, and millions of commercial drivers. There is not the resources to enforce the existing regulations. So ELP is a small blip, I think, in overall look at what takes capacity out of the market. But it is a shine from the administration that they are going to take enforcement on that issue much more rigorously.
Is the non-domiciled CDL thing a much bigger deal for capacity?
I think it will be. So the FMCSA came out in they did an interim final rule. They bypassed all of the normal rulemaking processes. That's a strange thing when the FMCSA creates a rule without any commentary. But they believe in their release they put out there that about 200,000 drivers would be off the road, 200,000 drivers in the next 2 years. What we are seeing on the insurance side is insurers are saying, I am not going to cover a non-domiciled CDL. I'm not going to have that in the policy. So you're talking about a fairly significant group of drivers who may end up not being part or having their CDLs downgraded. Again, it's the administration's way of attacking what they think are unqualified drivers or people on our highways that ought not to be there.
Yeah, I mean, the insurance companies are definitely going to push this because the question has always been the regulation. Like,
absolutely.
Are we going to get enforcement? And we know how bad enforcement is typically in these things.
That's right.
I mean, if 20% of motor carriers are unsafe or unfit to drive or or should be out of service, taken off the highway, then we know that there's an enforcement problem.
If we cared as much about mud flaps as we cared about people speaking English, it would be a beautiful world. Let me take this analogy. If I was a grocery store and I had 5 gallons of milk and I said, one of these gallons of milk is unsafe to drink, you would say, Mr. Leffler, you have a very bad business and I choose not to buy any milk from you. You don't get that choice. 1 in 5 is unsafe at any speed. And we don't think about it the same way because we're thinking about how people drive and how people see CDLs. But the equipment piece is very interesting to me.
Matt, you should write a book. And there is a book, Unsafe at Any Speed.
Absolutely. There you go. There you go.
There is actually a book that. But I think the 1 in 5 unsafe at any speed is the headline.
Okay. Who remembers the Hope Trans case? Their out of service rate was 34%. 34% of those trucks, when inspected, were out of service. What broker would hire that motor carrier? This is insanity. But I am gotta be calm. I
No,
love
no, you don't. Please.
You have to get excited about this. This is your supply chain. This is your kids, your family. We all want to get home in the same condition that we left. That's the goal. That is always the goal. Safely delivering freight on time and undamaged is not easy under any circumstance, but this is madness. It's madness.
It's absolutely a travesty.
100%. It's all preventable. We are addicted to ever faster, ever cheaper freight. That is how we think of things. We think I love Amazon. And they've taught us that shipping should be free. And we think about that in our way of thinking about the industry. But it ought not to be. We need more qualified drivers. We need higher rates of insurance and better rates of maintenance and repair.
All right. So this morning, I don't know if you sat during when Steve and I were talking. Yes, you did, because you're my truck driver.
Yeah, I'm a truck driver now.
You're the truck driver.
So good. I can't drive manual.
Steve Gold at 160 Driving Academy gave me a list of crash per drivers percent. And I cannot talk. You have to take over.
So here,
fatalities per driver. This is the list. I mean, these numbers are pretty astounding.
All right. I love to talk about driver qualification. It takes you 1 month. It takes you 1 month to get a CDL to drive an 80,000 pound machine. You are not required to learn how to drive at night, drive in the mountains, drive in adverse weather. That's not what you're required to do. It's a commodity that pumps out people thinking that there's a big glut of an opportunity to drive in this industry. And it's simply not the case. Our standards as they are too low, and the standards that we have are not enforced. So if you want to see a change in the way we do things, you have to boost enforcement. That's at the truck driving schools. And it has to stop with self-certification. Self-certification is awful. To give you an example, there are 1,000 ELDs that are in this country that are self-certified. Over 250 have been revoked. That's 3 to 4 every single month of ELDs pulled off the market because they're not able to do what the manufacturer says they can do. This is absurd. We live in an industry where we are on the cutting edge of what could be catastrophe. That's my life. I was a defense attorney for trucking companies. The worst case scenario was every single day for me. And my hope for everyone is you should care a lot more about your government and how you maintain your trucks and trailers.
Man, I like to fire you up. Especially since you've taken all my energy. It's gone over here. Matt, we have 2.5 minutes, but I have to talk about tariffs. You started there.
Yes.
Talk about the Supreme Court, where we're at.
By show of hands, how many people know about the VOS selections case? How many people know about this case? Okay, this is a catastrophe. The most important Supreme Court case in your life is happening right now before the Supreme Court of the United States. It has to do with a thing called IEPA, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act of 1977. What that act does is it allows the president to declare an emergency. What it is not allowed to do, or at least not clear, is can the president create tariffs? And that's what our president did on Liberation Day. He created tariffs across the entire world that were never, ever, ever done before. It went to the lower court, the Court of International Trade. He lost. It went to the Federal Court of Appeals. He lost there. It is now in front of the Supreme Court of the United States. This is the largest grab of executive power ever in our country's history. I don't care if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat, because whatever your worst case scenario is, they will come next. I give this example. Imagine someone who comes into this industry and says, I believe there's an environmental crisis, and I think internal combustion engines are terrible for the environment. In fact, I think it's an emergency. So I'm going to put a 5,000% tariff on every single internal combustion engine and every part for internal combustion engine. And what could you do? Nothing. You could do nothing. The only way for the emergency to go away is for 2/3 of Congress to overturn the president. That is impossible. That is impossible. So if you are not following VOS selections, and I hope after we're done today, maybe you will say, this is crazy. This is not how it was designed to be. Our government is a three-legged stool: executive, judicial, legislative. Each one checks and balances the other. None of them are more important than the other. So if you like the tariffs, maybe you do, Congress passes them, president signs them. It is not an emergency. The last piece I'll say on this is the average emergency declaration in this country lasts for 10 years. For 10 years, there is an emergency when someone declares it. That is not how this is supposed to work.
Wow.
You got to get excited, folks. This is something you can do something about. This is like why I'm here, is because I want you to get excited and educated, because you are far more powerful than any generation in history. You have no idea how much voice you have in this environment. You can do incredible things.
Well, Matt, on that note, we have nothing else to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure.